So we work in conjunction with HR to field requests from departments, evaluating pay ranges, costing out position changes, and other similar type requests. So our compensation plan, we've got several key tenets. It's a very data-driven plan. It sits on top of a fairly complex data model. So it's kind of where the analytics piece comes in. The payroll function for the county is also in our department. So, any given biweekly payroll, we're processing and issuing payments to more than 700 employees in 2 weeks. So, big job, important job. Something that's new that you'll hear more about in the coming months is sort of our organizational development efforts called EOS. It stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's basically just a set of tools to help us plan and prioritize and communicate about some of the major initiatives and operational improvements that we're working on as a county. We're trying to provide some structure there, some consistency. And so, again, in the coming months, you'll hear a lot more about that, but it's just another thing that we work on in the BPA. Finally, we do a lot of ad hoc type of research, again, budget policy and analytics, right? So departments will come to us with data requests about, we've got a management analyst in our office. So we sort of serve as almost like an internal consultant to different departments when they've got questions and data needs and some numbers crunch. Finance is with us there, but we really like spreadsheets in our area. So appreciate the opportunity to share our role and looking forward to working with you in the future. If you got any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thanks.
We're going to pass the responsibilities of finance on to next month because Margie Hamer's about sick today. So GIS is next.
Hello, I'm here representing the GIS, or Geographic Information Systems Group. GIS is a support department where we provide services to all other Washington County departments. We are organizationally located within the administration group, which is why I'm reporting to you. We have 3 people in our department. Myself, Eric Gamka, I'm the director of GIS, as well as the county's land information officer. I have over 20 years of experience here at the county. Also on my team is Mike Vanderson, our GIS coordinator, who's also been here 20 plus years. And then our newest hire is Pat Walker. He has been with Washington County for about 1.5 years. He's our GIS analyst. New to the county, but certainly not new to GIS. He has a wealth of experience working at the city of West Dallas before joining us here. One of the responsibilities of the GIS group is maintaining data. We maintain parcels for the real property lister's office. We maintain a variety of district data sets like lake, school, emergency response districts. We maintain wards and supervisory districts, and we submit those wards to the state to assist with the county clerk and her statutory responsibility to submit that information to the Elections Commission. For the Natural Resources Department, we maintain the shoreline, flood, and wetland zoning data layers. We maintain local zoning for the villages of Kewaskum, Germantown, and Richfield. We have a memorandum of understanding with them where we maintain that information for them. And that's a program that we would like to see expand to other municipalities if they're interested in our assistance for doing that. We maintain street center lines and address points for the entire county. That information is used for a variety of planning purposes, but also for in the dispatch center over in the sheriff's department and a project that we're working on. We manage LiDAR projects. That's our elevation data set where we have 1 foot countywide, 1 foot contours countywide that we update through a contract every 10-ish years, 5-10 years. We share that information out. And then we also manage the county's orthography program where we're flying new aerial photography it had been every 5 years, but now it looks like we're moving to a 2 or 3 year update cycle. So some of the services that we provide, we try to make all of our data available to departments, local governments, the public and professional users. We're involved in a ton of scanning projects to make that information more accessible online. We do have a free data download site. All the information that we maintain is public record, and we try to get that out there and accessible and usable for all the professional users and the public working in the county. Then we create a variety of viewer websites for the people who are unable to use the GIS data directly. And that could be a public facing site, but it could also be something that we create for our internal departments. We are most recently getting into mobile app development for our departments, primarily for field data collection. We do spatial analysis for lots of departments. Of course, we do map generation and report generation. We operate 2 unmanned aerial systems, commonly called drones. But we have 2 of those. We have 2 licensed pilots in the GIS, as well as there's 1 licensed pilot owned for the Natural Resources Department that also use our drones. We use them for aerial imagery, for detail mapping, and what I call marketing applications. If somebody needs something for a brochure or something, we're able to do that. But we can also use those drones for 3D modeling, as well as detailed elevation data for sites that are highway department or development or land conservation or anybody were to need. We also participate in various state and federal data programs with the Census Bureau to make sure that their information is up to date as well. Some of the recent or current projects that we've been working on, we were the technical lead in the recent redistricting effort for Washington County, where we helped draw the new supervisory districts. We also provided technical support to all of the local governments in the creation of their wards. You may not know this, but we're still not done with redistricting. When the assembly lines went through, they did not honor the wards that the municipalities worked so hard to create last year. So we're working with the 4 municipalities that had to update their wards to accommodate the assembly lines. Hopefully this week or next, I'll have that done, and you cannot think about it for 10 years.
Can I just ask a question on that?
Absolutely.
So where there's a mismatch, is the city going to have to change its ward, or are there going to be multiple ballot stops in that ward?
Ashley jump in if I misstate anything, but a ward can only be in 1 assembly district, just like it can only be in 1 supervisory district. So
They're going to change
in the
their
cases
wards.
of the city of Hartford, the town of Hartford, village of Jackson, and town of Trenton, they had assembly districts that split one of their wards. So they're going to have to create new wards to accommodate that and introduce additional ballot titles in some cases.
Okay. Can they take an existing ward and just have it, or is that not always?
Yes, that is normally what we've been doing this time. So
Okay.
if the assembly district goes right down the ward where there was 1 ward, there are now 2 wards. And unlike when you go through the normal process where there's prescribed population limits for wards where you're supposed to stay within those limits, when the state makes a change, they don't make you follow population.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So GIS is heavily involved in the Transportation Network Sustainability Plan. Mike Vandersen, who works in our group, received the County's Innovation Award for his work on that project last year, but we're just finishing up City of West Bend and Village of Kewaskum, and we'll be moving on to City of Hartford and Town of Farmington next, right? City of Hartford, Town of Farmington. Yeah. So we're working on those and definitely providing technical support for that effort that's being led by our highway department. We're cleaning up our address and street centerline data to support next generation 911. We're providing information for broadband mapping and mapping the results of who's reporting high speed and who's not. We have a current pictometry project where we're acquiring new orthography this year, but in addition to the straight down view, we're also acquiring oblique images. So we'll have kind of roughly a 45-degree angle in all the 4 cardinal directions that we believe are going to be helpful for law enforcement and assessment purposes, and really anybody can use that information. Assisting the county treasurer to scan all the historic tax roll books. Kind of a fun project for the veteran services is we're creating a mobile app that he can give to the Boy Scouts, and they're going to go out to the cemeteries and map the locations of where all the veterans are buried in the county. So that's kind of a fun project that we're working on. And then just a ton of field apps for our natural resources department as they're trying to become more mobile and less reliant on paper forms. I'd like to talk just a little bit about funding, because this question comes up a lot and it's a little bit different than most. But the three positions that I described, they are levy funded, and we thank you for that. But really, all the projects that I just that kind of run through my area are all funded by the Wisconsin Land Information Program. Currently, the oversight of the Wisconsin Land Information Program is with the Land Use and Planning Committee. So all of the project stuff probably end up going to Land Use and Planning. I think that might be something that we talk about in the future, but that's the organization currently. So the revenue for the Wisconsin Land Information Program comes from a recording fee that's set by state statute. The recording fee for all real estate documents is $30. $15 stays as general revenue for the Register of Deeds, and then $15 funds the Wisconsin Land Information Program. Of the $15, the county retains $8. $7 goes to the state of Wisconsin. That stays in the Wisconsin Land Information Program managed by the state. So we are able to collect that $8 and retain it if the county has a land information office, which I serve as that function for our county. As a land information council, we have to have update a plan every 3 years. And then we have to use that revenue specific for the development, implementation, and maintenance of countywide land information. The $7 that goes to the state, they use some program administration. They maintain a statewide parcel map with that. They offer training and education grants of $1,000 to all 72 counties. They offer base budget grants for counties that retain less than $100,000 per year. We're well over that, so we're not eligible for that grant program. But then they also fund strategic initiative grants that provide additional money for our group. If Washington County chooses not to participate in the Wisconsin Land Information Program, we don't get to reduce our fee. We still collect it. We just don't get any of the benefit. To the other counties. So, like I said, all the projects, it's GIS related projects in my group, but it's also projects in various land information related departments. Treasurer, Register of Deeds, highway surveyor, natural resources, and all of that. So I think I've talked long enough, but if there's any questions, I have to answer.
Yes, sir, I have a question regarding your drone usage. Is that something that is made available to the public, or I'm thinking with realtors, that sort of thing, or is that strictly within use for the county?
So if we collect information with the drones for a county project, it becomes public record and we would share that. If a realtor just wants us to fly a house that they're hoping to sell, I mean, that's kind of outside the scope then.
And the application of your drone and the ones used by the sheriff's department are wildly different, correct? So that you don't share.
So the sheriff's department flies their drones under a COA or certificate of authority in order to fly them specific to law enforcement. So they're doing accident reconstruction, they're doing search and rescue, they're doing, just ask the sheriff's at this one, but they do, like, it's all specific to law enforcement. We license our pilots through, it's called Part 107, that's through the FAA, which is required for any non-recreational use of a drone. So our pilots are and some of the drones that we have might be the same model, but we use them for different purposes. So we're using them for monitoring road construction projects so we can get status updates. We're using them for elevation mapping. We're using it for when you put the conservation easement over the Washington County Golf Course. Part of that was that only a certain percentage of new development could be allowed in certain areas. But we flow detailed aerial photography at the time that conservation easement went in. So if there's ever a question in the future of what was there at the time that easement was put in place, we'll have documented proof of that, of what was or wasn't. So yeah, I mean, similar drones, similar technology, different types of applications.
My question is related to the broadband services, and what is the status of the survey that has gone out to the community? Is it complete? Is there still time? Are you satisfied with the results?
We have about, I don't know, Scott or they want to support in their lead on these, but we have about 500 responses to the survey right now. And they are all over the county. The survey is still open. We would still encourage more results to that survey. And we are just now starting to analyze the results. I mean, there's certain areas that are reporting no coverage that we would expect. But there's also people that are reporting no service or reporting underserved. And then their neighbor has high-speed internet. So it's possible that they might not like the service that they have, but it's being reported as underserved. So those are the types of data analysis that we're just starting to get into. But like I said, a little over 500 responses right now. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron Dahl has asked to move up because he has an issue, so before we get into the street fight that might ensue on the PCO policy, we'll go to our action item.
Thank you for being flexible on this one. So the sales tax, it's been around since 1998. The committee report and the resolution has a lot of the history of how we've dealt with the sales tax at this county. This resolution specifically is coming to you because a prior resolution required it to be revisited in 2022. So the resolution basically just indicates that we have revisited it and we intend to continue that sales tax. The board adopted a biennial budget that included sales tax revenue through 2023. So, to do anything but continue it would certainly require some pretty significant efforts in planning and changing the county code. And so it's pretty well baked in at this point. I didn't plan on going through the entire committee report here. I'm here to answer questions you might have. So I can answer any questions or.
I, for one, we've been charging for over 20 years and we really couldn't take it on the budget now, so entertain any comments.
Yes, I had a conversation a couple of years ago with our county executive, at that time county administrator, about if we wanted to get rid of it, what would the plans look like? And they weren't very good. Other than some sort of tax shift where we create some new tax, which defeats the purpose of getting rid of it. There weren't really any good projections for how we could get rid of this and still run a fiscally responsible government. So, I think we got to continue with, unfortunately.
I mean, we're still lowering the tax levy, right, Josh?
Oh, yeah.
So we are lowering taxes in a different way, right? Like this going.
If there's no further discussion, I will entertain a motion. Moved by Supervisor Trotz, seconded by Supervisor Schott. Take the lead. Any further?
Like, it's simply a matter of what are you gonna replace it with? You can't just get rid of the revenue. And the sales tax affects everyone, not just the property owner. Whether you're a resident or not, you purchase something inside the county, you're helping the county. All you consider getting rid of it or what the alternative might be.
No further comment, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we'll go to item 5G.
So thank you, everybody knows me, I'm Todd Scott, Human Resources Director. So what's in front of you, the committee report is really specific to a change in our PTO policy. This is what's going to be recommended to our county executive. And so this is a discussion item. Largely, I want to give you the information as to what it is, general information. If you have feedback, so certainly open to it. Our PTO policy has been, I think, needless to say, a very generous policy for our employees. I think it's a great thing when it comes to attracting and retaining employees, people, and that's part of what my role is. On the other side, I do think that it may be a little overly generous. And so what our recommendation is really to eliminate the 25-year accrual. Each of you has the policies. If you get a chance to look at it, you can see what those accruals look like. This, I think, puts us a little more in line with the general market of our workforce. I do want to just highlight that at that high level of accrual, particularly the most senior level, it's a day and a half off every pay period. So you basically take a day and a half off a week and never touch your accruals. So you'd still be having a balance that you keep every year, just like take a day and a half off. Do I think people do that all the time? I don't know if that is or isn't the case, but does it make sense to have a policy that does that? One of the reasons why we're bringing it up now is simply because we'd like to be able to get it in place so employees are aware of it, so that those who would be thinking they might be able to accrue it at the end of the year don't plan on it, don't make plans for it. So the sooner the better we can get a lot of things into our interest. The other thing that we did put in here, I think it's noted, is that if somebody already has earned that 25-year accrual, we're not going to take time away from it. So nobody will lose time as part of this. Potentially the I guess, loss of potential accruals, but nobody's really going to lose any time. So, Matt, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add.
Yes, hi, I'm Matt Furno. I'm the chairman of the planning committee, and that committee is made up of 4 employees that we explore all the benefits. We look at all the different potentials, pluses and minuses, and we've created over the past 5 years a number of positive things that all the staff in general are very, very pleased about. Now we come back and there's a takeaway and they're less pleased, and I can't blame them. That's life. But let me just explain some of the features that we have that none of the 10 counties that we use as the comparison counties employ. The first one is we have a 3-tier system, and that is we progress through 3 segments, 3 tiers, and after the employee goes through tier 1, they have achieved the 75th percentile of the market. Now, that's something very significant that Josh and all of you, all the board, has approved, which is extremely generous. When I started over 8 years ago, we were at the 50th percentile for the market. And the board generously, and Josh Shulman generously allowed us to go to the 75th percentile, and that's a lot of money. And so we're very, very pleased with that. Besides that, we go beyond the 75th and we can have 2 additional tiers. So the first tier today is 14% from the start to the 75th percentile. Then we have 2 8% or 16% above the 75th percentile. This is an extremely generous program. That's number 1. And we're very, very pleased. The 10 counties that we use as comparisons, they have the stepping grade, what does that mean? We had the stepping grade for 100 years before this new system. And all that means is that every year you go up 1 step, and it might be 18 steps for the whole program. And you only get that 2% or 2.5%. With the 3-tier system, you not only move up with the cost of living, which is 2%, 2.5%, or 3%, but you have the opportunity through performance of reaching another 1 or 2 or 3%. So an employee can get anywhere from 0 to 6 or 7%. This is an extremely generous program. Number 3 that I see is that why we're recommending taking at the 25th per year, taking that 1 more week. You know, and I know that it's very hard to find employees. And what we have, and we look at the entire county, not offices that have 1 person, and when they're gone, they don't cover. We look at the sheriff's department, we look at Samaritan, and it is extremely difficult for coverage. And to have a few benefit for another whole week, it is extremely costly and it is extremely difficult. Years ago, when I was in healthcare, if you didn't have the staff, you could go to agencies and they would have the people, and you pay 2.5 to 3 times more per hour to get the agency, but you covered vacations. Today, you can't even find agency. And so it is extremely difficult, and consequently, we are working our employees 16 or more hours a day to try to keep up with the coverage. So it is very problematic. The 4th thing is that you and Josh have been extremely, extremely generous since 2020 with COVID. You've allowed the employee who has COVID or a family member 80 hours and not charge their PTO, but get paid their regular pay up to 80 hours, 2 full weeks. That is unbelievable. So again, everything costs money. And then of course, the 5th point that I see is that we're going to, in the very near future, be facing a recession. We can't afford not to continue to give our employees good pay to keep them. And I'd rather take this potential of an extra week of costs away from the county, so to be able to spread those dollars for all employees. So that's what we're struggling with. It's horrible to take anything away from the employee. I understand that, but I think it's very justified at this point. Thank you.
I think at the end of the day, it comes down to takeaways are never any fun. You never want to do that, but there's also a productivity cost that we get. And so this is a way to say, how do we justify to our citizens that you know, people can take that time, and then we either have to staff over it or we're short staffed. I think that's largely why this is coming forward. So this is what we plan to recommend. If you have suggestions, feedback, we'll certainly listen to them and incorporate those and consider this.
Just a question as to how many people this might impact, that the reason for doing it now, so they're not surprised at the end of the year.
So right now we have 56 people who currently have the 25 or more years of service. There are 13 people that, as of January 1st, would be eligible to move to that 25-year point. I think after that, I've got another 11 people the year after that, and so it continues. 10.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that it'll be 13 people that are affected. And again, talking about how do you do that? I've been in HR for unfortunately a longer window of time than I'd like to believe sometimes. There isn't a good way to do this. And if you try to tier it, then the person who's the day before that says, but wait a minute, how about me? So you have to pick a date and time. The thought was, if you say January 1st, anybody today has plenty of time to absorb it and adjust to it. Versus doing it in November and so on.
But those 56 that are already at 25 years,
So keep it.
there's no effect.
They're good. We won't pull that up.
So, I look at this and being an old HR guy, I get it. This is a very generous benefit. We offer benefits in general to attract, retain, and motivate the workforce we need. I guess where I'm a little bit concerned, it comes with that takeaway mindset. We have employees who have been looking forward to this for 22, 23, 24 years, and now it's going away. Yeah, I can see from their perspective how it kind of feels like they're Charlie Brown running towards the football, and we're Lucy pulling it away at the last minute. So, I was thinking about this and what's the best way to approach this? The county maybe shouldn't have offered such a generous PTO benefit when we did. But that's hindsight. Looking forward, my thought is people, when they hit that 14-year mark, definitely start looking forward to that 25-year benefit. People, as they're closing in on that 14-year mark, might be looking forward to that benefit. So some sort of grandfathering, realizing that this delays the savings to us, but some sort of grandfathering around the 10-year mark, 12-year mark, in my mind, felt like a lot better way, because I think this change needs to happen, but I think it needs to be done in the right way where it respects all the expertise that this very experienced group of solid workers for us has and doesn't alienate them.
And I can appreciate what you're saying. Certainly we can consider that. I can speak to I came here and this program existed. So,
Yeah,
so, I mean.
it's been around a long time.
Yeah, I think 8 years, a little more than 8 years, right? And so at the end, this is the program. It's fine. I know in my past lives, and it was all on the private side. I put in PTO, I've changed other things. At the end of the day, it came down to, here's what our job is, here's what we have to go to. And yeah, you know what? Yeah, sometimes you got things, sometimes you lost things. We certainly can consider that. And as we make our recommendation to the county executive, we can then decide why we move forward.
And I know this is a discussion. We don't get to vote
Yeah.
on it. We don't get to decide what's going to happen.
Appreciate it.
But I'm just trying to look out for our employees a bit. I think, whatever's decided here, I'd ask our employees to think about all the other stuff that was mentioned by Matt Burnham, with all the other good things we're doing with advancing our pay strategy. We are trying to do a lot of good things for our employees, but a trade-off might be that this was something from the past that was over generous and we got it back. But I think how we do that matters too. Yeah.
Agreed.
If I can elaborate with what Chris is saying, if we do move forward with this, do you expect a lot of attrition? You think a lot of people would quit, or would be tough to function?
So if you asked me that question 10 years ago, it would have been a really easy.
Sure.
Today, I flip a coin, right?
Yeah.
Do I expect it? No. I think you've got people who've been here 15, 20, 25 years. They've got a pension, they know their jobs, they like their jobs, but there's no guarantee. The job market is the job market, right? And everybody and their neighbors hiring. So you don't like it somewhere, you move on. I wish I could answer that question, but I probably would be on a speaking circuit making a lot of money. So
I know we're making a lot of assumptions. I'm just thinking that, okay, if we move forward with this plan, it's not going to hurt us terribly. We hope that.
I don't expect, so I think,
Sure.
I don't expect people to be throwing parades and dancing saying this is a great thing. But on the other side, do I think that we're going to have rampant turnover? No, I don't think this one thing is going to do that. Probably create some frustration, and I certainly don't want that. Look, I'm an employee too.
Sure.
And so yeah, I'd love to have a much larger benefit and a lot more wages, and my benefits should be free and all of that.
We all
But
would,
that's not real.
right?
And so I think this is part of saying we owe it to not only this county, but to our own infrastructure. So how do we support this? That's why we're making recommendations.
Don't you feel more comfortable knowing that attrition will not be as bad as we think?
And our clerk of courts is asked to make a comment. This is unusual. We may have a rebuttal.
I have shared this with Josh and Todd. Maybe it was weird. All right, so as clerk of court, I do have 6 out of 28 staff that have 25 years of service. I do have several staff that are creeping up into the 25 years. I have been here over 33 years. So I've seen all the transitions through the county. I'm a historian now, who would have thought. As you know, PTO is used for vacation, any time off, sick time, all of that. The little spreadsheet that I gave you, I gathered just in the last couple of days. And I made it equitable so that we can easily compare the amount of time per pay period. We are seeing an employment downturn and inflation of over 8%. Currently, I have a job opening in my office for an accountant. It's been open since the 6th of May, and I have 6 applicants. And this is a professional job. I am concerned about moving forward with some of these things. So it does make me look at the benefit package a little bit more closely. Those employees that are in my office, when you're there 20 or more years, you are my most loyal, most dependable, most efficient employees. You're proficient, you're showing up for work every day, you're doing your best work at that point, right? I want to address some of the issues that are in the committee report and some of the comments that were made today. As far as cost savings go, my budget for a full-time employee budget's 2,080 hours. Whether you're there or you're not, I mean, the PTO, your regular salary is all included in that 2,080 hours in my budget. So as far as cost savings, I haven't seen anything regarding that. So I'm not aware of any real savings. The savings of the 60 hours of time, the 60 hours that's stated in the committee report, that gain when you get 25 years of service is for management only. Regular staff get 40 hours. So that's a 1 week increase in time off when they turn, when they have 25 years of service. Pay is not the only incentive. I know this. I was a regular employee for over 20 years. I looked forward to the next time that I would get another week's vacation. My family looked forward to it. I wasn't the only one that was depending on that time off. As far as being generous, you can see on that spreadsheet, we're pretty typical. I included on that spreadsheet Dodge, Ozaki, Waukesha. As a matter of fact, we really are at the bottom. Yeah, 10.77 hours for this is all regular employees. I did not compare against management. So when you're looking at this, I have to argue against that. When an employee is there for over 20 years, they also have life experience. I have staff who are newer and don't show up for work, have used all of their time, and then I'm having to do unpaid time off with no control. But these employees that are there over 20 years, they're showing up for work every day. They are setting aside some of their PTO for sick time because they know I've got a mom and a dad, I've got kids at home. You're this sandwich person that has to take care of everybody else. And how are you going to take those days off if you need it? We're talking about Brad Stern. I mean, all these people that, something happens in your life and now you need time off. They are not using all of their days for vacation. I really ask that you even consider, we have a seven-year time frame where you get an increase after 7 years, you get an increase at 14. I would ask that we actually reduce it from 25 to 21. And a thought, just to put it out there for compromise, would be, why don't we set this for new employees? Why would we do this to our dear staff that work so hard for us? I want to keep them. I don't want to disincentivize them. I really think that the new employees, those are the ones that going forward, they may not be there 25 years, but at least they know from the get-go that this is the deal. This is how I started my job. I thank you for your time. Do you have any questions?
Can I just ask a quick question here?
Yeah.
If I'm looking at this right, in Ozaukee County, every pay period, they're accumulating 20 hours of PTO. Is that so? 5 sick and 16 vacation.
That is what I was told.
Oh, yeah, never did anything. That's really
But I'll admit, I did not, I was short on time, so I did not include the limits. Like, we have maximums. I did not include those maximums on here. All of these counties have very different maximums.
Yeah.
So some counties really encourage you to use your PTO and not save it. But some of these counties like Ozaukee, so this sick time appears to be a sick bank. It's not wrapped into their PTO.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is a little bit different than ours.
Okay. And just for everybody's benefit, totaling up the numbers Todd gave, between 20 and 24 years, it's 67 employees, which is close to 10% of our workforce. And between 15 and 19 years, it's 69 employees, which again is almost 10% of our workforce. So this is going to, if we just look at those two brackets, that's 28% of our workforce that is now directly looking at, they view themselves as running towards that football, and we're pulling it away from it. So,
to be fair though, that's that extra week. That's the football.
yeah,
They're still getting a lot of paid time.
yeah,
And having been in an office myself, I know when people get a lot of time off, the rest of the people have to pick up the slack.
Yeah.
So, we have to be fair to all the employees.
yeah.
Thank you for your
All
time.
right, thank you.
A lot to chew on.
Yes.
Thank you.
understanding that this is simply a discussion item. What's gonna happen is gonna happen with or without our blessing. So,
Yeah. So we can at least make that.
yeah.
Thanks.
Next is Community Development Department, item H. That's generation housing.
Good afternoon. I'm Deb Silson, Community Development Director. I provided you with quite a bit of background information on the Brownfields program and the housing program. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on going over any of that, but I did hand out before the meeting just this 1-page summary of the Brownfields program. And I just wanted to highlight on the backside, this page, the 3 funding sources that we have for the Brownfields program right now. We have the US EPA revolving loan fund. That's a $960,000 revolving loan fund. We have a site redevelopment committee that is going to be reviewing policies and procedures. But all funding requests and approvals will go through the EDWC revolving loan fund committee. We have 2 pots of money that are county funded. One is the Brownfield revolving loan fund. That's $1 million. Other than the items above and beyond what's outlined in the heads of terms, and I've identified that under supports, loans up to $250,000. And then the uses of those funds, if there's a request above and beyond those parameters, then it would go to the site redevelopment committee. But if it's within those parameters, those requests go towards the EDWC revolving loan fund committee. The third pot of money is the Brownfields Assessment Fund. That's a $600,000 fund through the county. It requires a 20% match with the local governments. All of those requests go through the site redevelopment committee first for initial approval and eligibility determination, and then they will be brought forward to this committee for your review. So I just wanted to make it very clear, although we have 3 areas of funds, there's only one fund. It's the assessment fund that will go before this committee. And just in the last couple of months, we have had a couple of those requests. One was the Village of Alaska redevelopment proposal, and then also some testing done at a site in the city of Hartford. Next, I wanted to quickly go over some information about the Next Generation Housing Program. That information is in your packet that I provided. The goal of the Next Generation Housing is providing 1,000 new owner-occupied housing units over the next 10 years in next generation housing developments. And those developments are going to have about 75% will be under 300,000 and 25% under 400,000. That would include the home and the lot. The additional information on the Next Generation Housing Initiative, I really would like to wait for the next agenda item, and we'll go through the framework in a little bit more detail. So unless you have any general questions, we can wait until the next agenda item.
I was copied on the notification that we got that we were turned down for the federal grant recently for the next 600,000. So what happens now with respect to that?
Yes, we were turned down, and for every EPA grant that and it's been a couple, we go through a debriefing request of the EPA. And then they go through different parameters and different suggestions that they have for the county on the next application. There's an application every year. This fall is actually the substantial it's an additional funds that are being provided by the federal government. And we will be looking at potentially applying for those funds. There will be additional funds. We're going to be talking about that at our next SRC meeting and how we want to approach that grant. So in the past, we have always approached it looking at a site for each one of our coalition partners and then telling a story about each one or a couple of them. We may take a different approach and really concentrate on one or two very large redevelopment opportunities in the county and really provide a whole story in detail as to why we would like those funds and justify the need for those funds. We may take a little bit different approach to the application. That's going to be talked about at an upcoming SRC meeting.
So the past debriefings have told us that this is a good way to go.
It's one of the ways that we may shift gears, yes.
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay.
Then we'll move on to item I.
So you should have gotten the framework for the Next Generation Housing Fund. So the framework that we put together is very similar to the framework and the same type of format and model that we use to do the framework for the site redevelopment assessment fund that I just talked about, that $600,000, and the county revolving loan fund was brought forward to the executive committee several years ago. So I modeled the assessment fund framework in developing the framework for the next generation housing. This framework was reviewed by the Next Generation Housing Committee back on April 29th. We have $10 million allocated for this. If you turn to the next page, the vision for next generation housing, navigating housing opportunities, providing attainable housing options, and building a diverse housing population. And again, with that goal of 1,000 new owner occupied housing units in the next 10 years. There are three main components to this next generation housing fund. The first one is a forgivable loan program. The second is 3 pilot developments. And then the third component of the fund are startup funds for those communities that are not pilot programs. I want to draw your attention to this table. This is the proposed budget for next generation housing. With those 3 components, the first one is the forgivable loan program for $2.5 million. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with this section because later on in the agenda, Christian Teschlock from the EDWC is going to be giving a review of specifically that home loan program. But we do anticipate that we would have future donations provided by businesses to keep that pot of money increasing as time goes on. So I'm really going to concentrate today on those 2 other areas. The first area is the pilot developments. So we are anticipating 3 pilot developments. One is the village of Jackson. That's the 20 acres south of the municipal building. The second one is the HADC, Hartford Area Development Corp. Property by the industrial park in Hartford. And then there's going to be a third pilot program, and we're in the process of identifying and ranking 46 potential sites throughout Washington County. We have a work group that's going to start working on this tomorrow and setting up criteria and then ranking all of these potential sites to determine what is the site most ready for development. And then that will become the third pilot for the county. For those 3 pilots, we budgeted $6.75 million. And that will be able to fund engineering services, planning services, surveying, environmental due diligence, land acquisition, infrastructure development, or direct developer incentives. Yes.
So I heard you say site most ready. Is that going to be the only driver of what the criteria are?
No,
Okay,
It's
because
not.
I
We have
envisioned like, okay, a site's really ready in the town of Farmington, but that's not where we need housing, or, you know.
we have a whole set of parameters. We are really looking for our developments to be within sewer service area. So having that connection to sewer and water, that's one of the most expensive items in a development. So the closer that we can have sewer and water to a development is the best way to go. Also, local government support and resources, as well as the environmental factors that are on that development. Is there a developer that is interested or ready? What is the ownership of that? And the list goes on and on and on, and we're gonna be looking at all
Proximity
of
to
those.
jobs, you know, like Hartford and Jackson are good choices because they're high growth areas.
Mhm.
Farmington, even if they had sewer and water, they're kind of far away from the high growth areas. Is that one of your factors?
Yep, we're gonna be looking at housing demand as well.
There's only
Seven.
seven municipalities that are eligible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're the ones who think.
46
Towns
towns
are,
are.
yeah, towns are.
Yeah.
Towns are,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
we're
I
looking at-
just threw that out as an example to kind of make the point of, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. So then getting back to the chart, we have these startup funds, an initial startup fund of $250,000, and you can see who's eligible for that. I identified the municipalities that are not already part of a pilot development, and then these would be used for everything I listed, except for the infrastructure development and direct developer incentive. It's really a pot of money to allow municipalities to identify their priority site and then to start working with engineers and getting a survey done or environmental due diligence, some of those things that need to be done just to see if the site is really the best place for the housing to happen. And once those funds are depleted, then and whatever municipality is not identified as that third pilot, then would be eligible for $500,000 for additional startup funds as well. Now, mind you, all of the requests for these funds will go through the Next Generation Housing Committee first for initial approval and eligibility. And then they would come before this committee, and you can see from your agenda today that we do have several requests for these funds. Let's see. In addition, we're going to develop a memorandum of agreement, an MOU, MOA, with each of our coalition partners that do request funds. And then we'll be setting out roles and responsibilities for the county and the municipality as we move forward. There's a lot of information in this framework. I hope you've had a chance to review this. Do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody turns a little bit.
Chris,
And
how
I'm
about
looking
you?
for just a consensus.
The amount of information is overwhelming.
There's a lot of stuff here.
here.
My only thought is, I mean, like the hot housing market already, prices of, I mean, I've had projects at work that got canceled because the owner took a look at the costs. They said, no way. By throwing more fuel at this fire, is that just gonna drive up prices up higher?
Well,
Right?
Supply side economics.
Exactly.
Supply side economics. There's not enough supply, and that's why prices are.
Absolutely.
So
With lumber,
that's what
with
this is all
everything.
about, and it's why the target range that we're working, you'll notice we go up to $400,000, and but our real niche that we're trying to get is 200, 300. That doesn't exist in the marketplace today, for the most part. So what we're really trying to create is an inventory that is not existent. So we're trying to flood the supply, and because we know the demand exists. So it's just a matter of time, I think, until we get traction with any one of these pilot projects. I actually personally believe it's gonna be harder to get the grant program off the ground, down payment program that you'll talk about a little bit, for the loan program.
Sure.
Because the market's so hot, so competitive that taking the extra step and going through that process, I'm just a little worried about that. But there's no doubt, no ifs, ands, or buts. Housing under 300,000, even under 400,000, especially under 300,000, isn't, it doesn't exist.
Yeah. And, I mean, I like this program. I was just concerned about that.
Yeah.
Because I know we've talked in the past about controlling the growth in Washington County. This kind of helps that, right?
It does, because we're focusing in on the sewer service areas.
Right.
The cities and the villages.
Controlling the growth, which is a good thing.
The big question is, can we build houses at that price?
We're gonna have to be smaller.
We're gonna try.
We're gonna have to be smaller. Square foot has to go down a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, the square footage of the house has to go down, the square footage of the lot has to go down, the square footage of the road has to go down. I mean, there's just a ton of complicated factors. You know, these American society, it's not like the municipalities in Washington County have done something different than everybody else. So all American society has gone from 1950s neighborhoods that
Salt box.
they were salt boxes,
Yeah.
50-foot wide lots and 6,000 square foot lots to 80-foot wide lots and 8,000 square foot lots and 4,000 square foot homes. And it's just how we've gone. The problem now we gotta be having is, of course, anybody starting out can't afford that. And those little salt box houses still have the same people they had in 1965. They're not leaving anytime soon. So, yeah, I think that's really the niche that we're trying to hit. And as soon as, from my perspective, as soon as the supply side is hit, beauty of this program is we're out, we get out. Right.
Yeah,
Temporary program for a temporary crop.
And one thing to keep in mind for everybody, that a smaller square foot house doesn't mean that the quality goes down. You're still
Right.
building nice houses. So,
Well, and we were talking home ownership, that's the other.
right.
And it'll be even more critical as these pilots come on. We're not talking about subsidized rents, we're not talking about subsidized mortgages. We're not even talking about subsidy in any way, shape, or form. It's a matter of how do we drive that price down? Because by adding all that square footage and adding fancy light poles and adding fancy boxes, it's not the developer paying for that. They pay with a 10% fee on that.
And one of the ways we're gonna address all of those is to come up with a model ordinance, in working with our local governments. You know, so they have ownership of that development of what that next generation development will look like.
That's got a great coalition of our local planners from across the county. Who are very, very good, very highly experts at this whole thing. So I'm very confident that that model ordinance, and we were looking at it the other day. I mean, there's neighborhoods literally adjacent to the courthouse. You can't build them anymore. It's not possible to build them anymore. Our zoning codes don't allow them to be built. Those are the houses that many people I know looked at.
Yeah.
And some of their parents still live in them, and some of them still live in them. So I think, I'm not saying we should blame the county with that, don't get me wrong, but I am saying there should be a space for that stuff, even if they're brand.
Absolutely.
Supervisor Schultz, you have a question?
Just a comment, I was gonna just build on what Josh said, that serving on the Next Gen Housing Coalition, it's a great group of people there. They ask wonderful questions during their meeting, and our meetings, and they really, just what you said, you know, they're really looking at it and what if someone wants to build a, 8,000 square foot house on this little lot? And so Deb's constantly writing down from the feedback from the committee, the questions that come. So it's very well, but she's super organized and lays out a very nice spreadsheet for us each time.
So I'm assuming this is relatively innovative. Actually, it's extremely innovative. I'm assuming somewhere in the US, somebody else has done similar things to this. And we've reviewed that and tried to learn from their successes and their mistakes. Am I right? Or is this so innovative, nobody else has done this?
Well, the home loan program is so extremely innovative. I don't think that has ever been done before.
Okay,
And what we're doing, working together as a coalition, the whole county, all the cities and the villages working towards this, I would bet that it probably has never been done either.
okay,
And it's the same type of national recognition that if successful, which I know will be successful, that we will get, just like we do with our Brownfields program.
all right,
The answer is if it's there, I don't know where it is.
okay. So this is completely innovative. We're
I mean,
We're-
don't get me
Washington
wrong,
County,
there's been-
yeah.
I like it.
Leading the way.
Tip of the spear.
there's been a lot of developments called new urbanism where it's very small lots and to build community, but it's never been at that price point. It's always been a lot more expensive. So, yeah.
In fairness, everybody, lots of people are trying to crack this nut, and they're doing it lots of different ways. But not quite like this, and not so heavily home ownership centric. Lots of multifamily rental
Yeah.
type of scenarios. A lot of that, where they're trying to drive down rent price points, but not that I've seen. I mean, basically, we're trying to revive the 1950s post-World War II American concept, and I just did not see that really anywhere.
To what degree are you receiving pushback from the municipalities regarding they're gonna be forced to changing some of their zoning rules and laws? And in this area now, you're not gonna put in sidewalks, and you're not gonna have all the street lights. You're gonna have, the individual's gonna have to have a street light in their front yard, that sort of stuff. Are you getting buying into this, or are you getting a lot of negative pushback?
So, we are the group, the work group that I talked about, that's gonna start tomorrow on determining the inventory and the ranking of that inventory. It's made up of the 8 cities and the villages and the HADC. So they're gonna be talking amongst themselves, and they're gonna be in agreement with that ranking and then how everything washes out and gets ranked. That same group is who I want to work on developing this model ordinance. So it's different when you have those municipalities in their room creating something and taking ownership is a much better way to go than for me to develop something and hand it to them. So we're working together cooperatively in building this program.
I speak from the Germantown point of view, okay? I can understand Steve Krecklow being involved with this and endorsing this and signing on board. He's still got to get this to his village trustees. And that to me is going to be a long rope to push up a long hill.
Well, I'll tell you
Then plan
something.
commission too.
Right.
Which is probably hard, yeah.
He's going to have to, that's got to be a big mountain to
But
climb.
I've been in that situation before with comprehensive planning, the partnership that we had with farmland preservation, brownfields, redevelopment. Yeah. If the intergovernmental cooperation is key.
Yes.
It's completely why Jeff's got all the right people sitting at the table, Justin from Hartford and Mark from West End. I think having them sitting there and saying, my plan commission can do this, they can't do that.
Yep.
We can do this, we can't do that. So the square footage of the lot's a really good example. Germantown, minimum square foot on the residential zoning style, 10,000 square feet. I'm pretty sure we can drive around Germantown and find lots that are smaller than that. So there has to be a conversation about what can we do again, which we used to do, what are you willing to swallow, and where can we put it? Where are people willing to live with it? Again, we're not suggesting, I mean, we would never do that, to say the whole entire community's got to be open for this. We're talking about, we know the types of places you can put housing that, right? Somewhere near probably an industrial park or retail space that isn't right next door to treetop subdivision. I mean, you're just not gonna do that. It wouldn't make sense. And the planners are people who know how to make that blend best.
And,
Both the code itself and aesthetic.
and those 46 potential sites, those were developed not by the county. It was me sitting down in each of the municipalities and asking them where they think the best sites would be for this development. So it's a different way to approach it.
But it's gonna be really good discussion because that 10,000 square foot lot discussion is very interesting. Well, let's just use a more common example, 8,000 square feet. Multiple municipalities in the county in the coalition have 8,000 square feet as a minimum. Now, we know in Jackson, in West Bend, for example, I'm sure in Hartford, there's lots that are 6,000 square feet, and probably lots that are even smaller than that. When you look at that number, sometimes from a government perspective, even a planning commission perspective, you think, oh my God, we can't get them that small. You can stick your hand out your window and grab the salt from your neighbor. Well, yes, that's true. And we did it once. But also, when you think about the difference between a 6,000 square foot lot and 8,000 square foot lot, it's not just, we're not just talking about aesthetics. Do the math. When you sell one of those lots at 8,000 square foot lot, it's $40,000, give or take. You cut that baby down to 6,000, it's a $10,000 cut. For somebody in this market who can afford that kind of a house, $10,000 is a lot of money. And then you can take that example and take it to right of ways. We used to build these really narrow roads and no curbs and no sidewalks, and just keep adding up the sidewalk in front of a 60-foot lot, 3 curbs in front of a 60-foot lot. I mean, it adds up fast. Now, I'm not suggesting that you should make roads tighter because fire trucks are wider and garbage trucks are wider and snowplow trucks are wider. But let's talk about that. And let's say we're going to add 15 feet of right of way. You're adding this amount of money, $10,000, $20,000, whatever it is. And we're going to live with that. And we're going to pass that on, or we're going to absorb that somehow and acknowledge it out loud in public. Because over 50 years, over 60 years, we kind of just gotten away from it. Like, oh yeah, no problem, the developer pays that. Yeah, so I think it's really good just to have that discussion and then tip your hat to the fire chief and say, yes, we understand, we have to have a wider street, but remember, you're passing that cost on to the buyer, which eventually is our taxpayer. By the way, right now, can't move this now. So I'm excited for the discussions on that, and I'm excited to not.
I love it. I love the concept, and I hope we can make it go. And that's good. That's going to be the key, is get the municipalities and the leadership in those municipalities to say, yeah, we're going to do this for Germantown, we're going to do this for Jackson, we're going to do this in Slinger, wherever. And you're right, we're going to get rid of the 4,000 square foot homes on the 14,000 square foot lots, and we're going to cut them down. We're going to set the separation. You don't are going to have 15 to 20 feet on the side of your house anymore. Now you're going to have 8 to 10.
And just in this area, we're not doing it, next to these fancy subdivisions, just in this one spot, where the inventory.
I think you mentioned street lists, and that's a great example. In my district, there's lots of those streets where it's one way and then there's a parking. And you look at modern subdivisions, there's room for 2-way traffic and parking on both sides. So you have these massively wide streets, and then they have sidewalks on both sides instead of just on one side. And all that adds up to cost, and it takes away buildable space. You talk about the lot size. If we trim a lot size from 8,000 to 6,000, a segment that would support 3 lots now supports 4. And you add that up over a decent sized development, that's a lot more lots, which is how we can sell it for less. So this is all the right type of discussion to be having. As a society, we've gotten too grandiose in our ideas of what you need in a house. Everybody thinks you need a 3,000 square foot house and all the bells and whistles, and a good starter home You know, yeah.
But it's not always the owner in
It's the determined.
town,
Yeah.
like the Kinderberg Estates. That started out with a lot more homes, but it was the neighbors who killed that. They went to the village and says, no, we don't want this. You've got to have fewer lots, fewer lots, fewer lots, fewer lots.
And it's the perfect argument for the inventory. Don't put a subdivision with too many lots in a place like that. You just have to know that. Now, the developer bought that and then started making plans, because that's how it works. But especially with the planning group, I mean, they know their municipality as well. They know I'm not going near Kinderberg Park. I'm going out by the industrial park. I'm going to this other area. I ain't gonna bother nobody, right?
The new Renwood North.
Yeah.
On Freistadt, right next to the railroad tracks. That's where you're gonna see some of this going.
If you see.
Well, Renwood's gonna have, we're gonna approve it.
So I'm just looking for a consensus.
It kind of sounds like we're all on board.
We're all on board.
I mean, we brought up our concerns, so.
So the only thing I want to touch on, before we go on to the next one, if it's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
I'd like to just say that there's, as you just heard, there's $10 million that's allocated, and Deb did a really nice job of breaking down all that's gonna work. I can't emphasize enough, if this works, we're gonna come back again for more. When you'll be asked in the coming months to approve more ARPA money, and my intent is to have it designated kind of as in a holding pattern to keep going. Like, I don't want to stop the third municipality. I'd like to see all 7 of these municipalities get a crack at this, and our ARPA money really help them. Because the thing that is really important for us to be able to hit all of them is, remember, they build 100 homes at $300,000 a crack. Let's just say that's the average. You're talking about $30 million in equalized value. That's property tax levy money right now. For all the concerns that municipalities, valid as they are, have about revenue, this will be a shot in the arm that you can't believe if we can get it to work. And we want to make sure everybody gets that shot if possible. So, I mean, as we're going through that discussion, just please have that in the back of your head. Yes, it's 10 million a day, but I think it can be more than that with ARPA. And quite honestly, if it works well, you run the math on, you do 7 of these, and you're able to crank out that number of homes, you get that money too. Okay. You start doing the math and you go, wait a minute, maybe this is worth investing seriously more money. But that's why it's a pilot. Let's see if we can even get it off the ground, build a prototype, and then what's that word? Build a prototype. Which I think is why. Yeah.
one of the arguments in Germantown against giving water to Richfield was, oh, they might build more houses, and that if they projected a number of additional students into the schools, and how will the schools take that? And someone in our office today said, they just passed an $84 million school referendum, and they don't have any place to put kids. What would they do? You know? So, and I know in a lot of areas, the declining population of school-age kids is a concern. So this is a way to reverse that trend, hopefully. So that's a good problem to have. So next item is Jackson J.
So this is the first request of the Next Generation Housing Fund. It's a not to exceed $31,000 for a planning proposal. The Next Generation Housing Committee on April 29th did unanimously give their initial approval of this. It's for preliminary work for a 20-acre site, the pilot site that I mentioned. It's going to be for an update of a neighborhood concept plan and assist with developer recruitment, including request for qualifications and developer negotiations. So phase 1 is the updated neighborhood concept plan. Phase 2, developer recruitment and request for qualifications, and then phase 3, developer negotiations and development agreement preparation assistance. The county will be working with Vanderwall Associates and the Village of Jackson and a project management team, moving this project forward.
And this is another one you're looking for consensus on.
Yes.
We need to in order to move forward, right? This is the next step.
This 31,000 comes out of the.
This will come out of that 6.75 million.
Okay.
Let's go. Yeah, we're good, moving on.
Moving on. Okay. The next request is for the Hartford Area Development Corp site in the city of Hartford. It is for a not to exceed $45,000. And this is for 3 different proposals. And it's for the preliminary work for a 64-acre site. This is one that's next to the industrial park in the city of Hartford. The first proposal is for a development of a market demand study. It was $18,250. The second proposal is for the development of a master plan for the site at $9,000. And then the third proposal is development of a survey for the site that was $10,150, and that's been reduced to $9,700. We did add a little cushion to this in case there are additional meetings. So the request is for a not to exceed $45,000. And Justin Drew from the City of Hartford Community Development Director is here. If you have any specific questions for him on these proposals.
Anyone?
It's a good location too. The Jackson one was by the new.
South of the municipal building.
This one's up to the west of Hartford. It's good to meet.
Do we have consensus?
Yes.
Okay,
Great, thank you. The last item is the request for $2.5 million for the Forgivable Home Loan Program. And I'm actually going to hand this over to Christian Teschlock. He is the loan manager for the home loan program.
Of your new digs. We're still digging.
We're still getting used to it.
it haven't cost us $2.5 million.
Yeah, I know, I was asking for it. But it looks very, very awesome. And I think the public's going to really enjoy the fact that they can access it whether they're here or not. With some of the electronic improvements that we made. So first of all, we're referencing, I have no idea what page it is on your packet, the heads of terms framework for the American Dream Revival Forgivable Loan Program. Point out right out of the gate that this has been vetted by EDWC's executive committee as well as board of directors and was approved by our board of directors as presented at their board meeting a week or so ago. Lot of content here. And won't walk through it, so I'll just hit a couple of high notes that I think are most important for your consideration. Starting with a couple of key themes that really drive and underpin everything that you see here. First of all, you'll notice there were several revisions. So while there's a lot of talented people on the EDWC team, I'm really proud to work with them, we know we need to bring in additional talent on something as creative and innovative as this. So there was initially a starting work group that included the lender community as well as other stakeholders in the space of residential development that were a part of building this heads of terms. And since then, it's been vetted not only by the Housing Coalition that was spoken of earlier, but also vetted by additional folks within the residential mortgage lender community that provided input. So lots of revisions have brought it to the point where we are today. And lots of talent has come forward with expertise in this specific field. A couple of other key things that you'll see, keep it simple. As non-simple as this looks, it could have been way more complicated. And so the focal point was to drive simplicity as much as we possibly could. And frankly, that's where most of the debate and discussion really evolved, was in that in trying to keep it simple and not cook too much into this recipe. Another major theme here is build off of a winning formula. We have engaged, obviously, a very successful loan program on the commercial side of things. So let's take some of the best out of that as we look forward on the residential side. But even more specifically, we've got a small biz loan program that had an extremely successful run. And to this date, they're receiving payments. There have not been any defaults off of the small biz loan program. I have no idea if that's real wood or not, but I'm not on it anyway. And the reason why I mention that is because there was a lot of simplicity that was driven to that loan program to make it very accessible and quick use for the intended target market, which is the small business. And then a couple of other key things, market driven. In other words, this isn't government driving the bus. This is starting with the marketplace, responding to what the gaps are in that market and moving forward from there and staying focused on purpose. I'll pause there for a second to see if there's any questions or concerns you have about what the foundation that's underneath all of this. We'll focus in then on page 2, which is the purpose, and on there, there's a purpose statement. And this is really key because we kept coming back to this, as Deb knows, every time we have a question, County Executive Office knows, we keep asking ourselves, are we overcoming barriers to entry and ongoing ownership of an owner-occupied home? And the key is overcoming barriers to entry and ongoing home ownership, meaning we want to keep it affordable, not that a Washington County resident purchases a home and then can't afford to stay in it. So we kept focused in on that. So when I say focus in on purpose, that's where we were. And so with that, you'll see various eligible uses of funds, namely, and we assume primarily for down payment purposes, which means that the way we needed to structure this, without getting into the weeds, it needs to be considered equity by the lenders. And the way it's been constructed based on the mortgage lender feedback we've received, indeed, they would look at this very much as equity. And I could answer more questions on that if you wanted to dive into that, but I'll just move on. Deb really and Josh as well already spoke to the public purpose requirements that go in this and where the targets are. So I'll move right into the loan structure itself. First of all, looking at the loan amount, you'll notice it's not just a fixed dollar amount. It has a percent or a variation that goes with it up to a cap of $25,000. The reason for that was to really drive to the sweet spot. So while technically an individual buying a home up to $400,000 could participate in the program, you're going to get most bang for your buck in that $250,000, $300,000 neighborhood. So again, very intentional and thoughtful in terms of how we drove towards that. You'll notice that there is no interest for the first 7 years, and then you may have also noticed that the forgiveness period, the time that they have to earn their forgiveness, is 7 years. Again, the point here is to really provide that true incentive and be seen as equity, meaning provided they engage in the 2 options really for forgiveness, and they've got 7 years to do it, there's no interest on this, and it really does become and grow as equity in the home. Just to give you an example, in that forgivable loan section on page 3, you'll note that on a $275,000 mortgage at 4% over 30 years, over that 7 years of payments, you're getting $40K in equity right out of the gate there, on top of the fact that you've gotten forgiveness on this particular injection right out front. So truly some serious equity that a Washington County homeowner can build through this program. I'll move then right on down to forgiveness itself. The forgiveness is for those who have been to church lately, you know that time and treasure is a common theme, no difference here. Time and treasure. And we anticipate there will be some who will probably take advantage of both. So you can work both collectively. And in fact, if maybe there's a choice in the household to have one of the members of the family stay home and not necessarily work, but they could work towards this equity by volunteering their time, for example, in the fire department. And engage it that way so they can accelerate the forgiveness. They don't have to spread it out over 7 years if they wanted to have the adult, or excuse me, the teenager, as well as a parent volunteering time and really hook it down in a hurry. This program rewards them for that. It does not disincentivize that at all. Not unlike the small business loan program, underwriting is limited. And the reason for that is volume here, again, simplicity, as well as the fact that we don't want to, we don't need to. I guess is maybe even the simple way to put it, because we're going to be basing off of the lead mortgage lender decision. If we say it's okay to drive forward, we're going to go right along with that, with the exception that we're going to have a minimum credit score requirement. And the score that you see of 620 there is standard in the industry. It's low enough to allow individuals who are just building credit to not be penalized at all and be able to join into this. But it does keep the, I'll say, really not optimal situations out of the pool here so that we can make the most available for those who really do intend to use it and pay it off or forgive. It is a first come, first served basis. We're going to have to make sure our servers are ready to take applications out of the gate.
Just wanted to poke in a quick question.
Sure.
I see a reference to being able to refinance.
Yep.
And to go from an adjustable rate to a fixed rate mortgage. And that just triggers a thought with inflation going the way it is. Right now is probably not a good time to get an adjustable rate mortgage. Are we going to allow people to buy a home on an adjustable rate mortgage, knowing that it might create a disincentive 2 or 3 years down the road to staying in their home, or a barrier to being able to stay in their home?
Well, first of all, we don't, in this particular environment, anticipate too many people are going to select an adjustable rate mortgage. But we don't know what's going to happen, 3 or 4 or 6 months, much less 12 months down the road. However, we do have limits on that adjustable rate mortgage allowance, meaning it's got to be fixed for at least a 5-year period. If you think about the time to forgiveness on the note and so on and so forth.
They get us pretty close to where we're at. But yeah. So.
And it also is at that point in time, it allows them to hedge a decision on the home and have some equity with which they can make some other decisions on that basis.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
We're confident on that piece, designed it such that we allow for the flexibility, but we don't incentivize what you would say is suboptimal or not great behavior on the part of the borrower. You don't want to be incentivizing a bad home decision. Go right on down to your budget, home economics. We don't want to be incentivizing something that doesn't make sense for them.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. I really don't think there's actually it was a great time to interject because I'm not sure there's a lot more that we need to dive into here. Other than I'll point out that, and this is important, that defaults are something that is at the discretion of the administrative body, EDWC in this case, on how to manage those. And the reason for that is you're talking a small dollar amount, and it doesn't take a long time before things can get expensive to try to recover a small dollar amount. So we really need to retain flexibility. So there may be a situation where there is loss of principal without forgiveness having been earned. I just want to be very upfront and clear about that. Again, we don't anticipate that, given both the nature of the culture of the Washington County communities, as well as how we've structured and built this out. We think we've mitigated that as best as we can, but we just need to be upfront and clear about that. And then I'll just scooch all the way to the last page and also be very clear and open on page 6. Quite the last page, but the allocation summary. As Deb mentioned earlier, there's $2.5 million total start up the program. You can see we're going to put a couple of reserves in play. One, we'll have some startup funds. It's going to take some money to put something like this together. It's, to the best of our knowledge, not really been done anywhere else before, at least not that we've seen or found. So it's going to take some time and resources to get it built, particularly if we want to do it quickly. And then we've got an administrative legal, and then you might be wondering, what's this pilot reserve? Well, you just heard a few moments ago about these pilot programs. Some of them may take a little while to advance, and we didn't want to, if this program gets really rapid uptake, we didn't want to have nothing available for them once those pilots are ready to go. So we wanted to make sure there were some funds available for those pilot programs that were selected. So on the basis of 25,000, if everybody hit that max, you can anticipate about 61 homes right out of the, that would be immediately available for support through this program. Yes, sir.
So bear with me and walk through an example. So if someone buys a house, they borrow the $25,000. What's the forgiveness? They pay 7 years, we forgive the 25,000?
They actually are paying nothing for the first 7 years,
They
while
pay no
principal and
interest.
interest are deferred. So essentially what they're getting at close is 25,000 to put towards, say, the down payment, and, talking the scenario here, put towards the down payment. The bank considers that to be an actual down payment in equity, one, because of the forgiveness opportunity, and two, because we subordinate to the bank, so they don't have to worry about their own exposure, if you will. This is only facilitating the deal. So 7 years goes by. During that 7 years, in all likelihood, they've either contributed funds to an eligible nonprofit or they've donated time to that eligible nonprofit. All of that money is forgiven. They've not made a payment. They've not made a monthly payment. They've not had to, interest has not accrued. And therefore, truly, they've earned $25,000 in equity that will no longer be available in the program, obviously, because it's out the door and it's in the home. It's in the construction of the home and property tax revenue that comes off of that.
But then you go to the 20-year term. How do we get there? If they didn't get forgiveness, they
You
keep
answer
paying.
your own question. So
Okay.
for example, let's say the $25,000 note, they only got 15,000 forgiven at the end of that 7-year period. Now it goes on the standard payment schedule up to that 20 years.
Thank
For that remaining 10,000.
How are you gonna police the volunteer time?
That's the same question.
Let Deb speak to that.
Oh, we have a
The
guest.
sheriff will be here momentarily.
So, okay, so the forgiveness component is actually going to be handled through the community development department. We have this social capital coordinator, and she is meeting with nonprofits throughout Washington County. We'll enter into a MOA with the nonprofit organizations. And once a loan closing is done, then you'll be notified. And then we will work with that, not just the borrower, but the whole family, to determine, their passions and strengths, and if they want to, contribute financially or as sweat equity, as identified, the volunteerism, identify the nonprofits that are passionate to them. And then, it could be a handful of 6 or 7 nonprofits. And then they would have, it's a program that we're working with our IT department and subscribing to, and they can have their hours on an app on their phone, and they will work with not the county to identify volunteer opportunities. Our role is connecting the borrower to nonprofits. It is their responsibility to connect with the nonprofits, either directly to the nonprofit or possibly working with the volunteer center, if the nonprofits are members of the volunteer center, to get the actual volunteer opportunities. So I just want to make that clear. But once they've done those hours, they'll be able to go on their phone on an app, click, the hours that they worked, and then there'll be an email that'll be directly sent to the nonprofit. The nonprofit will just be able to click Yes, they were there.
They sign off.
And then we will be notified, and then whether it's monthly or quarterly or annually, then we will be providing those hours back to the EDWC that manages the loan.
Is there, one more question, is there anything that they could do for the county to
Yes.
get that money back? Is that also part of the program? Or is it just a nonprofit?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I gave a very brief presentation to the department head meeting just yesterday morning, and I was approached by a couple of department heads, I think it was the ADRC and the sheriff's department, where we would have volunteer opportunities.
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions you have about the candidates in particular?
Have consensus? So. Good luck.
We'll take it.
If it works, it'd be great. Our next meeting is June 15th at 4 p.m. This meeting, sure.
We're done already?